Ladies, what is the number one thing that we have been denied for centuries, but we have the power to change when we are making our own patterns and clothing? It also happens to be a super secret favorite part about this dress that I've recently made. What is it? Pockets! Yes, this dress has pockets, of course, because we all need pockets. But not all pockets are created equal, am I right? So I'm here to share with you my number one thing I always try to do when adding in my pockets to my pattern. Let's go check it out. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Trisha. I'm the owner of Creative Costume Academy. I have made it my mission to help all sewists, stitchers, and sewers out there who are curious about pattern making, thought they could never learn it, but I'm here to tell you that there's other ways, and I want to share that power with you and also that you can have fun and start doing it right away. Today for Tricky Thursday, we're talking about pockets. Because let's face it, I don't know about you, but the number one power I love about making my own clothes is that I can add in my own pockets. Now, I know in ready-to-wear clothes, the one thing that bothers me about pockets is that they're never big enough. Like, what am I supposed to put in that pocket? They're tiny, right? Or they're fake. And I'm like, no, give me a real pocket and make it substantial. I want to put my phone and my keys and my chapstick and everything else that I need to just be a girl out in the world, right? But one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the simpler pockets to add in is that they look like this. That's a great pocket, it's big enough, you can put your hand in there, you can fit a lot of stuff in there. But there's one big problem with this pocket. So I choose to go with a pocket that's more like this shaped. Do you see the difference? So this style that I just showed is what I call an anchored pocket. And this other picture that I reference is a super easy pocket to add in. And a lot of times, even if you're using a commercial pattern, a lot of the commercial patterns that we can go out and buy these days have pockets included. Thank you so much for listening. But a lot of times they will have just this little simple, I call it like a side seam pocket, a sack pocket, whatever the terms are to use for this style of pocket. But even when I'm given a pattern that looks like this style of pocket, and now on this dress, this is actually a dress that I made. I'm not gonna call out the pattern, but it just came this way, and I actually had my assistant cut it out for me so I could sew it up quickly, and she cut these pockets out. But I, 90% of the time, when I am given this pocket, try to create and turn it into an anchored pocket. The difference is here, when you just add your pocket into the side seam, so you have a seam right here, and it's really easy, even if your pattern doesn't include it, you can draw the shape of your pocket, cut out those pieces, and you add it to the seam so that you have the opening for the pocket. But when you don't have it anchored, what happens is when you put things into your pocket, it distorts the whole look of the dress. So that dress that I showed you with that little side seam pocket that's not anchored, anytime that I put my phone in there, which it is big enough for, but anytime that I put anything in that pocket, it kind of like weighs the whole dress down, and it's kind of pulling on one side. It's pulling on that side where I have the thing in my pocket, and it distorts the whole dress and like stretches it out. It looks very not polished. But when you have an anchored pocket and you put something heavy in your pocket, it is supported by the waist, and that is the key difference. So let's take a closer look at this. What am I even talking about? Let me show you an actual example over on the table so you can really see the inside guts. Sounds gross, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. And how to make your pockets be even better, if that's even possible, and make it so that when you have something in your pocket that you need, it's not gonna throw off your whole look. It's a very simple adjustment. Here you can see a close-up of that side pocket that I was talking about, that sack pocket. It's a nice pocket, it's nice and big, and it sits right into the side seams, which is pretty easy to add into any garment that has a side seam. When we're looking at this pocket style, this pocket actually has, if we were to look at the outside of this garment, it has a diagonal slant, so there is a facing there so you don't see into that. So you almost have to, with this style of pocket, connect it up to the waist. So already naturally this is anchored in, but you can do the same thing if you had a side seam pocket just like this one. We could turn this pocket into the anchored pocket like in my other example, just by, if we would have done this in the pattern, continuing the shape of this pocket to be caught up here in the waist seam, because on this garment we do have a waist seam. And then when you have something in the pocket here, then it has this to stabilize it at the waist. Everything is not pulling from this point on the side seam, which you can see just that is going to distort the pocket, and it also starts distorting the whole side seam of the dress. But if it was anchored here, see how it's not able to distort as much, and then it's anchored by the whole waist seam here instead of just this point right here. Here is an example of my dress, my gathered dress, that we're actually going to be sharing this draft with you. So if you're curious to learn more about how to make this pattern in its entirety, you will have that opportunity. But this one is a side seam pocket, and I did draft this from scratch. So I knew I wanted it to just be hidden in the side seam, but I still wanted to anchor the pocket and not have everything hanging and pulling from that one point. So when I drew this shape, I knew I was going to have this lining, and I was going to be able to anchor it across the top of the pocket, which makes it more stable. Here is that pattern that I was showing you on that sweater dress that I had. This is the pattern and how it comes out of the envelope, which is fine. And there are several commercial patterns that are like this. You can easily draft a quick pocket and add it into a garment that maybe doesn't have pockets. But I would highly suggest, if I were to make that pattern again, I would make this adjustment. So we saw on that dress that we had a waist seam that was about here on our dress. So you might want to lay this pocket on the other pattern piece that this pocket will connect to. And then you're going to have your stitching line that goes into the side seam. There's going to be cut 4 of this, 2 for each side. But you can lay your pocket onto the side seam of your garment, the front garment. And then I would just take this round shape, instead of coming back in here to the side seam, you could change the shape slightly and have it go up to the waist. And that could mean also to lengthen up here at the top. And then you would just blend that, and maybe we want to come out just a smidgen more. It just depends. It doesn't have to be straight from here. If you have other details going on, that could get messed up. But this green line is going to be a better shape and create an anchored pocket out of a side seam pocket that already exists. It's really that simple. Now, this pocket pattern already has seam allowance included on it, so you don't have to add any seam allowance to this. If this pattern piece had seam allowance on it that you're laying it on to make sure that you're going up the right amount, then you wouldn't have to add any other seam allowance. So really, it's just adding this space in here and copying it off onto a new piece of paper. And then this whole thing is what you would then cut out for your pocket shape. And it's a very simple change, but it makes a huge difference in how your pockets will actually function. Well, I hope that this inspires you to make this very simple adjustment to your pockets. Now, keep in mind, you won't have this option every time with every pocket, depending on the design of the pattern that you're working with, if you're starting with something from scratch, or even if you're making it yourself. But if you do have an option, a lot of times there is this option, and it makes a big difference, I feel, and it's really easy to do. So I hope you've enjoyed. Please make sure if you are enjoying these tips to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I do share these tips every Thursday for Tricky Thursday. That's what we call it around here. Turn on those notifications so you know when a new one comes out. Share them with your friends if you feel that this would be something that they would want to start doing as well. Now, if you're curious about this particular dress, we do have a very fun free class that is coming up. It is called Draft the Look, My Frocktails Fit, which I wore this dress to Frocktails. I will be sharing with you in that class exactly how to make this dress design, sharing my little tips about how I changed up the design, and it's completely free to sign up. Join us for Draft the Look down below. That's all for me for this Tricky Thursday. Thank you for joining. I hope that this brought a little bit of inspiration and joy to your pattern making journey. I'll see you next time.